as we head over to the Storm, as the Storm look to the WNBA draft that will take place in about a little over 2 hours. So, Bel, what do
Happy
we got?
draft day.
Yeah, there you go.
On April 6th, the ESPN releases WNBA mock draft version by Michelle. How do you say her last? I don't want to Vopel. Okay, didn't want to butcher that. So sorry, Michelle. Has Seattle drafting the following players with their 4 draft picks. All of them here are pretty much guards, 1 forward.
Which is interesting to look at.
Yes. The 3 guard options would be Nia Clouden from Michigan State. She earned all Big Ten honors all 4 seasons at Michigan State, averaged 20 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game last season. Number 18 selection, Jade Melbourne, also a guard from Australia. She averaged 12 points per game, 3 assists per game, 5 rebounds per game in the 2021 FIBA U19 Women's Basketball World Cup. The number 21 selection, Lexi Hull, who is also a guard from Stanford. She averaged 12.5 points per game, 5.2 rebounds per game, 1.7 assists per game last season. And she is from Spokane, Washington. So that'd be interesting. She'd definitely be staying home in her home state. And then the forward option here, number 33 selection, Hannah. I'm going to have you take over on that one.
Shervin.
From South Dakota. She's listed as a center on South Dakota website.
Yeah, it's interesting that the mock draft had her listed as a forward. Maybe it's like, oh, she's a power forward, but the school has her listed as a center, which I don't know. I thought was a little bit of an interesting tidbit.
Do you get to select what you go into the draft
listed as?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you.
That'd be interesting to know. She averaged 15.1 points per game, 7.5 rebounds per game, 1.2 assists per game last season. So a few guard options here.
Do you have any thoughts on? I mean, if you look at it right now, I mean, obviously the point guard starting position's kind of set, and a lot of your starting positions are set. But the interesting thing is, unfortunately, in the draft, a lot of second rounders don't typically make the roster because of how tight the competition is and how few teams are at the current moment. Like for the actual draft itself, how a bunch of drafts they'll have people in person and you come up and they'll show you. This year's draft in New York will only have 12 players in person, and there's only 12 picks in the first round. So, and a big thing is, a lot of like Jewel Lloyd specifically called for expansion in the league because there was a list of like 88 players that were putting their names into to be eligible for the draft, and not anywhere near 12 times 3 is 36, 88. So a lot of talented players will not make the league probably, and there's people who are undrafted who, make their name, but it is an issue, so I would hope that I know the league in 2020 talked about expansion and they kind of played with the idea, but at some point it needs to happen because there's a lot of talented women that do not make rosters. Outside of that, do you have any thoughts on this? I know that at some point I looked at it as we look over to the little draft thingy here. Seattle's got the 4 picks, none in the first round, and I doubt that they trade into the first round if they traded their first rounder already. I looked at it as, you don't have, I don't think, an heir apparent, the point guard position, to usurp Sue Bird on the roster necessarily, because I think we talked about it. Sue Bird's going to retire at the end of the year. Brianna January is retiring at the end of the year. I mean, Jewel Lloyd could play the point guard spot and could take over there, but maybe she wants to just stick in her spot as the 2 guard. So that's where I look at it.
She's on a 1 year?
2. I think she's a 2 year.
Okay.
I think Stewie's on the 1 year because of the overseas contract situation that we've talked about. And I think Jewel came back on the 2 year. So she's on the 2 year. Let's maybe see how things go, right?
Yeah.
See how that's reconstructed. But we look back at the draft here. Second round picks, again, not guaranteed to make the final roster. The draft taking place today at 4:00. And so, I looked at an heir apparent at the point guard position and an interior force. I know we signed Jontel Lavender the other week. Ezzie Magbagor, we'll get to her and what she was able to do, and Mercedes Russell on the roster. But I don't, necessarily have. I don't know if you'd want, have another big in there. how do you look at the draft just with where the roster sits right now?
So just like you said, I don't know about the guard position because we don't know what they're hoping, who they're hoping will take Sue Bird's place just yet. There is someone that's gonna need to take her place.
Yep.
So I kind of understand like why not have another option just in case, or even just someone to like once Sue Bird leaves next season to be a backup for whoever does step into that starter role. But
because you're going to lose 2 guards that are on the roster right
yes.
now. And I know that somebody that I keep playing around with the idea of who's going to be a free agent at the end of the season is Kelsey Plum, who went to Washington and has had a lot of success in the last few years with the Aces, coming off as a 6 woman. That's how I would look at it. But yeah, I'm interested to see, because we talked about it all off season with Tina Charles and these other potential, and Noelle Quinn talked about her plan and what she's got. We have no idea what that plan is.
Yeah.
Could it be someone? I mean, Kelsey Vandersloot. I could be wrong. I could have just said that name wrong. We'll get that right. Vandersloot is from Kent, and she signed a 1-year deal with Chicago. So could it be, hey, I'll be in Chicago, and then as soon as Sue Bird retires, I'm coming over. I'm really interested to see Courtney Vandersloot. My apologies, Courtney. I'm really interested. I don't know if they plan on doing something in the draft. It's not going to be anyone in the first round, I imagine.
No.
Because again, you traded out of the first round. So yeah.
Well, and if Hannah can play forward and center, I mean that
some versatility is never bad, So you've got Gabby Williams and Stewie in sort of the 2 starter forward spots.
Yeah, so if you can
having some flexibility on the bench, it's never a bad thing. And as we talked about, having a good bench on championship team is going to be a thing, So yeah,
maybe if this is actually a possibility, they play her on both and see where she thrives more. I don't know. That's interesting. Just definitely interested to see where we go from here, because like we've been talking about, we don't want the big 3 to feel like they have to do everything. So, and with some of the success that our other Storm players have had overseas, it kind of makes you think that they might be able to carry some of the load. So it gives you hope. And I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see until at 4:00 today.
It is interesting because, I mean, if we look back at Clouden, right, with the number 17 pick that we've got, because 17, 18, 21, 33. Clouden, 20 points per game last season with Michigan. And point guard, really, with Sue Bird as a starter, has not been a spot that produces a lot of points.
Yeah.
She, in the last few years has not been big points person. A lot of assists, and just having that mind on the court is great. But you're getting a lot of that production from the 2 spot. And depending on Brianna Stewart, probably the 4. I know that a lot of time, Katie Lou Samuelson down the road of the season was picking things up. Stephanie Talbot, as a sharpshooter. Just consistent offense is what I'm concerned about. But with what you're talking about with overseas play, Gabby Williams has kind of eased a little bit of that. I'm excited to see how she does.
Yeah.
But the draft it's funny because even on Twitter this morning, people were like doing mocks. They're like, it's just such a chaotic time, and you never know. So I'm really interested to see where we go, and by the time that this is out, we will know we'll be getting close to what's actually taking place.
Yeah.
So I'll let you continue there with Storm news.
Yes. Moving on to some more Storm news here. On the 7th, they announced their 2022 local broadcast schedule. In partnership with Fox 13, they will broadcast 28 Storm games locally this season. So that's exciting. I can't remember how many games it was nationally, but I don't think it was 28. I think it was less than that.
Yeah, some of the primetime matchups, like against Vegas or the reigning champs in Chicago. So there's I think 4 to 6. They're going to be on the Disney partners of ABC, ESPN, ESPN2 or something.
Yeah. So this is exciting. If
somewhere
you're here
you can
locally,
go and watch it, if you're local, that is.
Yes. So again, locally, 28 Storm games will be broadcasted. On April 9th, Ezzy Magbagor wins the WNBL championship with Deacon Melbourne Boomers. So congratulations to her. We're excited to see some success for several Storm players here in their overseas losing the word.
Overseas, like I guess it's on off season in a
Yeah.
way, off season. But yeah, I don't have another word for it.
And then also on April 10th, Gabby Williams wins the EuroLeague championship with Sopran basketball. She was named the EuroLeague Women's Final Four MVP, averaged 14.5 points, 5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and 3.5 steals. And I think I was reading that she was also an important key for their defense. So it's exciting to see that she's doing things all around the board here.
Yeah, because I know when the team lost Alicia Clark in free agency a few years ago, you lost your defensive stopper. And now obviously you've got beyond January, but like we've doomsday thought about the Mercury and Chicago, you're going to need defense all over the starting five.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, having that from Gabby Williams will be huge.
Yeah.
And on the offensive production will also be good. But to see the Final Four MVP and see that she kind of wreaked havoc in that Final Four and then the championship game eases my concerns a little bit, because it was like kind of a wild card, because I know she'd been inconsistent offensively with LA and I believe with Chicago before then. So having that, I guess, calms me down a little bit.
Yeah,
you know?
I remember you saying that was your main concern when we found out that they traded for her. So it's exciting to see some good numbers, and hopefully she can carry that on into the season here. And looking ahead for the Storm, all we have is the WNBA draft, which is again today at 4 p.m. So we'll have definitely more news for you guys next week on how that went.